You know, there are some games on the Mega Drive that we don't really remember. Well, okay, there's a lot of games on the Mega Drive we don't really remember. I mean, we remember Sonic the Hedgehog, and you might remember 2 or 3 other games. But even though we remember the Mega Drive as a great console, we can't really remember any great games that came out for it. This is one such game. This is a game that, even though it was really good, it never really became popular. I may have a reason for it, but it's still mystifying to me. Take a look at this game here. This is Ristar. And this was actually one of my first Mega Drive games. So where do you say we pop this bastard in? First, a little history lesson. Ristar was a game made by SEGA in 1995. So it was the year the Mega Drive's lifespan had finally come to an end and had been replaced by the Sega Saturn. And that's why Ristar didn't really sell very well, and thus not a lot of people know about it. Because Ristar came out during the same year, not only the Sega Saturn came out, but also the Sega 32X came out. And on top of that, there was another Sega Mega Drive add-on called the Sega CD. So Ristar was buried underneath a lot of add-ons and a lot of hype. And with the PlayStation coming out around this time, boy, it really didn't get a chance to do it. But it still is a good game. And I'll get on to why, right now, just after this cutscene. So, after that cutscene, I hope you're ready for the gameplay. And there's only one defining feature that Ristar really needs, and that's something very clever. If you try to cram in too much into a game at once, then people will get confused. So Ristar only has one defining feature, and aside from that, Ristar is actually pretty generic now that I think about it. Ristar jumps around a lot in this set of 7 colorful levels. But Ristar's arms are what separate this game from any other 16-bit platformer. Ristar can use his arms to grab onto the climbing posts and then climb up them, or climb across them. He can use them to grab onto poles, and then swing himself between them, or he can also use them to attack enemies. Bear in mind this is Ristar's only means of attack. He can extend his arms into 8 directions, although I find he can only do it in 5, and that's the 5 facing up. He can't do it facing down. I mean, he probably can, but I've just never been able to do it. Call me shit if you want, I've just never been able to do it. But Ristar is actually made a great game because of this simple mechanic. While it can be frustrating sometimes, especially when Ristar isn't aiming his arms in the way you want him to, it's what separates this game from any other 16-bit platformer. Moving on to Planet Flora itself, there's really not a lot to say. Generic, starting level, easy boss battle at the end, blah blah blah, moving on. World 2, Planet Undertow. This is the water level. And you might think that, maybe this is just a generic water level. But you'd be wrong. It's actually my favorite platforming level in the entire game. Why? Well, I felt like it would make sense in a game about a shooting star to have a level set in space, maybe the final boss battle, where Ristar flies through space. And this is the level that comes closest to capturing that feeling. Ristar swims through the water quickly and elegantly, and as such it feels like you're flying through space. The controls are solid and responsive, and the combat isn't compromised by any means either. This is what makes it my favorite platforming level in the entire game. The fluctuating water levels are also a pretty cool mechanic. It helps vary the game, and you have to be patient. There's these turbines here that you have to knock off in order to prevent yourself from being blown back onto sea urchins. Sea urchins are also quite a common hazard in this level. Of course, at the end there's a boss battle. It takes place involving a hammerhead shark. The hammerhead shark will sometimes appear on the screen and then wait for you to hit him. He'll sometimes charge across the screen so fast that you may not be able to hit him, although you still can't hit him while he does this. Sometimes charge across the screen with barracudas, and you have to avoid the barracudas. Sometimes they leave these little exploding bomb things here, and you have to avoid them. And sometimes he just appears at the back of the screen and does something like, for instance, knocking down these rocks to try and crush you. It's a pretty varied boss battle, but it's not that challenging. Overall, it's actually a pretty good level. Only except there's one thing. Nothing to do with the level itself, but rather the next level. It's a pretty steep difficulty spike that almost put me off the game. Planet Scorch, and boy do I have a lot to vent about this one. It's the most unbearable difficulty spike in the game. It's probably the only difficulty spike in the game. but it still is completely unnecessary. I mean, especially after the water level, which I'm incredibly relaxed after. I mean, now you want me to take it seriously? No way! You should ease me back into it. Anyway, Ristar is on Planet Scorch. The game lets you know that. Welcome to Planet Scorch, motherfucker. Everything is on fire. Yeah, that's right. The ground is on fire. The walls are on fire. The enemies are on fire. Even the fucking water's on fire. How does that make sense? Ristar then can get caught in these cages. These cages will hold him in place while the fire burns his ass off. However, Ristar can use this decoy to throw into the cages. The cage will come down, then you can destroy the cage with one hit, and then Ristar can move on. It's a pretty clever mechanic, actually. But there's other stuff that's a problem too. Like for instance, take this stage here. You're supposed to throw the decoy so it lands in the cage spot, the cage falls down, then you destroy the cage, and then you move on before the firewater gets you. You can grab onto these climbing posts here if you don't manage to do it in time, so you can have another try. But your time is so limited, and your accuracy so poor, that it's impossible to do it. Mercifully, I did manage to get it done, eventually. But then there's this guy here. Look at him, he's fucking vulture. And look at him, he just wants to drop me in the fire. Like, why? What did I do to him? Why does he want to drop me in the fire? Yeah, you can kill him by hitting him with just one hit, like pretty much every other enemy in the game. But that's not the point. The point is that he comes down so quickly that it's impossible to aim in time to actually grab him and deal damage. You have to be so accurate with this. I am pleased to say that I actually have managed to do this once. Moving on to level 2, which is slightly easier, but it's still a very challenging level. Ristar has the shooting star mechanic back again, where you can swing around these maypoles here, and then turn into a shooting star. Another thing here is these pieces here. Look at them, they just blow up the ground from underneath you. That's not really fair, is it? I mean, even if you can see it coming, how the hell are you supposed to know where to go? Like for instance, how were you supposed to know that you were supposed to go through this wall here? If I wasn't moving right, I would have been dead. Thankfully, this does redeem itself with an interesting boss battle, which has you seeing fighting a mole, or a mole and mole equipment. I didn't know what it is. But anyway, you fight him on the ground, and then there's these free-falling sections where you have to damage him enough so that he falls down to another piece of flat ground. You fight him there, and then you follow suit, or repeat. It's a free-falling battle, which makes it very interesting, because it's not all about attacking, you have to learn how to avoid things. Ristar can't move up and down, but he can move left and right, which kind of removes some of the fun out of this level. I mean, it would have been fun if Ristar was able to move up and down. However, it is a good level. A good boss battle, and a pretty challenging level. Moving on. World 4, Planet Sonata. And this is actually the most original stage in the entire game. It's a music-themed level, and it really is a music-themed level. That's the whole gimmick. Climbing poles are being replaced by flutes, climbing posts are being replaced by trumpets, and music enemies are present and plentiful. And they all fire bad music notes at you. There's also another interesting mechanic, which is to deliver metronomes to songbirds in the first part of the level. There's 4 songbirds, so that means 4 metronomes. And the cleverness comes from not actually delivering the metronome to the songbird, but actually how you do it. See, Ristar can only carry things by holding them above his head with his own 2 hands. And this means that he can't do things like climb up climbing posts or swing between climbing poles while doing it. So it revolves around you to use everything you can in the stage to move the metronomes from point A to point B. It's a very clever and very refreshing objective that breaks up the monotony of simply beating every enemy and getting to the goal. Stage 2 takes on a more traditional role though, but that's not a bad thing. It takes place over a piano, and alongside another few music instruments such as drums and other things. It's a pretty tough stage, and then you finally move on to the boss battle, which is against a parrot. Now this parrot is performing on an opera stage, but he's a pretty bad singer. I mean seriously, the singing is so bad it actually managed to disorient the screen. And that is pretty off-putting. So you just simply knock him off 3 times, avoid his bad music notes and the falling pieces of glass there, and yeah, you're pretty much done with him. Except when he tries to attack you. Yeah, once he falls off his perch, he will try to attack you. He'll swoop down like a hawk and then try to claw you to death. You can attack him when he swoops down, or if he just simply flies too low to you. Round 5, Planet Freon. And for the most part, this is actually a pretty good level. It's pretty easy too, especially the first level. Why? Well, because Ristar starts off sliding down the side of a mountain and then he moves on to skiing. You don't actually control him during any of this, so I don't see what the point was, but level 1 is very easy for one thing. Ristar is sliding around on ice for most of the level. Now this might be a tricky mechanic, and sometimes it does turn out to be a tricky mechanic. However, Ristar usually slides in the direction that you want him to slide in, and he'll often jump at exactly the right moment. This is one of the few times where Ristar's timing is actually spot on. But Ristar then just moves around the ice for, I don't know, maybe like 2 minutes at max, and then the level is done. Pretty good level though. And there's one thing I have to bring up, this Eskimo guy here. He's the final boss, or the final boss of this level, not the final boss of the ice world. But yeah, he just throws snowballs at you. And I'm gonna be seeing him later, so keep your eye out for him. Moving on to level 2, it's a bit more challenging, and it revolves more around swimming. Yeah, the swimming sections are back, which is a good thing because they're my second favorite thing in the game aside from the boss battles. Anyway, there should be a mechanic, I thought, implemented where Ristar can't stay in the water for too long or else he might freeze to death. However, it's not implemented here. I might be complaining about it if it was implemented, but still, it's an interesting thought. But moving on to the boss battle, which is probably my favorite in the entire game, and considering this game's lineup of boss battles, that's a lot to be saying. But this boss battle, why I like it so much, is because it revolves around more than just simply hitting the guy until he's dead. Remember the guy from the first level who I was talking about? Yeah, this is where he makes his return appearance. He shows you exactly how to defeat the guy, and he provides you with the ammunition you need to defeat him. That's right, pizza pies. Yeah, you throw the pizza pies into his mouth, he thinks they're too hot to handle, and then he jumps up and tries to crush you to death. And this is the other thing I like about this boss battle. The attacks are incredibly varied, and they always keep you on your toes. You'll settle into a pattern, and then you'll settle into that pattern too, and then it'll completely throw you off guard by doing something completely unexpected. There's this ice breath first of all. The ice breath freezes you in place, and Ristar has to tap the buttons as fast as he can, otherwise it's history for him. Why? Well, because he'll become the victim of the inhale attack. The inhale attack is essentially when the guy tries to suck you in and then chew you out for some damage. Then there's this mechanic here. The guy will have this ice toffee in his mouth. I guess it's an ice toffee, you can call it what you want. But he'll throw it at Ristar. He's usually eating it, and this is providing an opportunity for you to throw the pizza pies into his mouth without waiting for the inhale attack. But he'll sometimes throw this toffee at you to throw you off guard, and if you're too close to him, then you're gonna get hit. Overall, I really like this stage. Why? Because it's a simple mechanic. I've already explained it a few times before, and I'm going to explain it a few times more. This is very clever. It shows that Ristar definitely has some variety and creativity when it comes to boss battles. I mean, it is a very creative game on its own, but this boss battle is the exact reason I love this game. Round 6, Planet Automaton. And this is the final world where there's platforming elements involved. I mean, there are some platforming elements involved in World 7, but not nearly as much as this. And they really want to let you know that this is the final platforming level. Because let me tell you, they really go overboard with the difficulty. However, it's not nearly as tough a difficulty spike as Planet Scorch was, because you're playing it for 5 levels now. You know what to expect by this point. Now, first of all, there's these spikes here, or these climbing poles. You grab onto the climbing poles and swing yourself between them, as you normally do. But they sometimes disappear, and it can be pretty hard to keep your momentum, especially when the poles you're trying to grab onto are disappearing before your very eyes. Then, of course, there's this section here. These surfaces are incredibly slippy to grab onto, but once you put on these metallic boots, then there's kind of a magnet field. You swim around in sort of semi-mid-gravity, I guess, I don't know what to call it, and you try to attack these levels. However, it's not nearly as fluent as the water level stages because you can't get too close to the magnets. They'll simply repel you. It's a pretty tough level, but other than that, there's not a lot to say. The second level is more interesting. It's also easier. I mean, a lot easier. But it revolves around getting to teleporters. If you get to the teleporter, then you move on to the next room. First of all, there's these platform stages. You hit into the platform, and then you move it either vertically or horizontally. You can change the direction by hitting it in whatever direction you choose, and then you just use it to get over to this teleporter over here. That's a pretty interesting mechanic. Then there's also this mechanic here, where you're hiding behind walls. Well, not really hiding behind walls, but you're rather moving behind them, so it's very difficult to do what you're trying to do. You just pull your arms out every 5 seconds and attack anything that might be in your way, and you're good to go. And moving on to the boss battle. Well, the boss battle is actually pretty underwhelming, actually. I really don't know how else to put it. I mean, for the final boss battle before the final boss battle, you'd be expecting a lot. But no, he's actually pretty easy to defeat. You just get up close to him, you don't hit him when he jumps, and then you keep hitting him. Then he'll eventually go down. Ristar will wait for the claw to come along. He'll deceive the claw, stand on this guy's back. Then the claw will come down, Ristar moves, and the claw ends up piercing this guy's gonads. Yikes. You know, actually, now that I think about it, Ristar is kind of a bit of a psychopath. I mean, look at the way he kills people. So, there's just a small platforming section in the first section of the final boss level. Nothing too big, it's just a lot of climbing involved and not a lot of enemies to fight. There's this eye following you around that turns out to be the first boss battle. There's a guy controlling a machine that looks kind of like a worm. And this machine is a very complex machine, but it's also your kind of cliche first boss battle, final boss battle machine. I don't know what you call it, but it's very cliche. It has machine guns, electro guns, force fields, you know, you name it, all the high-tech spy gadgetry that was in 20,000 other sci-fi movies. But you just essentially keep ramming the machine will malfunction, the guy will get out to see what's wrong with the machine, and hey presto, you're ramming. This process can be repeated a few times, and success will result. However, there is some level of challenge involved in this, but after you've done that, it's time you finally moved on to the final boss battle, the guy who's been corrupting all the planet's leaders, Greedy. Yeah, it is certainly true that there have been better named villains. However, there haven't been much harder difficulties. Greedy is one hell of a tough boss. You only get 4 hits, as you know, and first of all he'll send these teleporting turrets after you. The reason that they're so difficult is because they teleport. If they were to move around like normal turrets, then maybe they wouldn't be as tough. Once you defeat all 5 of the turrets, then Greedy himself will decide it's time to come out and do things himself. Greedy will teleport around the screen, sometimes too high for you to hit him, but when he does come low enough, you can eventually strike him. He will send out 2 of his minions to fight you, and then you take care of those, and then you go back to Greedy himself. I have died numerous times on this level, and I have never actually beat Greedy himself. However, I would like to. I haven't actually recorded the footage for what happens later, but I will tell you. Greedy eventually comes down, you know, and then he'll get a force field of balls, and use them to protect himself. He'll fire them at you. And then after that, once you've hit him then, he turns into a vortex, I guess, and then he sucks you in. That's where I died. I don't know what the hell happens after that. But is Ristar a good game? Yes, Ristar is a very good game. A fantastic 16-bit platformer that, despite being so lately made, proves that the 16-bit era had a lot to offer. With excellent graphics and interesting gameplay mechanics, Ristar certainly stands out as one of the best 16-bit platformers or the best games on the Mega Drive. Now whatever happened to it? Well, there was plans for a sequel. I mean, the creator said he'd love to make a sequel, but plans were scrapped. The sequel is still an open idea today, but it's likely it's never going to happen. But what happened to the character? Well, there were several SEGA Mega Drive collections that were released later with Ristar included as a game in them. But as for the character, he was in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed in 2012, but he was reduced to the role of waving a flag. Poor Ristar, I guess we'll never get to see him again. Oh well, at least we have this game to remember by. And I have to say, that's a pretty good legacy to remember a game character by. I think we can all agree on that, at least. I've been the man with the plan. Thank you for watching my videos. If you like this, please subscribe.